You ever do something or like procrastinate on something and then immediately feel the repercussions from it? You get so mad at yourself. You have no one else to blame. That's how I feel right now. Hey guys, it's Tuna. You're the First and Tuna podcast. This episode is great. It's awesome. Blaine Grisak, writer for Turf Show Times. Dude puts in the legwork. He was at the NFL Combine. Did great articles. Did a lot of the notes. This conversation that you're about to watch is great. We learn a lot about guys that maybe we weren't thinking about for the Rams to potentially draft this season. I highly encourage you to watch the whole thing. Just know that this was recorded a few days before Cooper Kupp's officially released. Devontae Adams is officially signed. Poona Ford's there. So a lot of his notes, obviously, you have to take that it's free agency opening up. And it's my fault for not posting this the day before free agency opened up. But yeah, if you guys are liking the content, like, subscribe, whatever else I'm supposed to tell you as a YouTuber. And yeah, enjoy Blaine. Ladies and gentlemen, the offseason does not stop. It doesn't sleep, and neither does Blaine Grisak. Blaine Grisak of Turf Show Times is back on for round 2 post-combine, where he ran a 4.65 40 himself. I think his vert was 35 inches, I think, right?
Accurate. That's very accurate. You maybe switch the 4 and the 6, probably more like a 6.4 5.40, and I'd be lucky to get maybe 15 inches off the ground.
Maybe you and the office over at Turf Show's got to go run office 40s and see who's the most athletic. But welcome back, Blaine. You are here post combine to debrief us and educate us on what you saw out there. How was it, man?
It was great. I think the combine it's a very unique, I think, NFL experience. Just you walk over the Sky Bridge in the convention center there, and you just casually walk past Mike McDaniel or Kevin O'Connell or some NFL GM, just casually just doing their thing. Tons of agents around there as well. It's tons of media there. Obviously, it's just there's a lot going on, and then obviously, you go to a Starbucks, you might see 2 NFL insiders potentially get in a fight. So it's the combine in Indy. It's a unique thing, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Oh my God, were you there for that?
I was not. I did go to that Starbucks several times, but I was not there to witness that fiasco.
That would be hilarious if the next day we saw an article from Blaine of just breaking down shot for shot what was happening between those two. Yeah, if you guys didn't catch up on that, yeah, got some NFL insider beef happening, but you kind of touched on it already today in the combine. I'm like, how many days were you there for exactly?
I was there. I got there on Tuesday, and then I left Sunday afternoon, so almost a full week.
And then this is how many years consecutively you've been going to the
combine? Yes, this was my second year, which was good. Obviously, learned a lot
awesome.
from my first time. You go there the first time, it's literally just kind of overwhelming because there's so much media there. Tons of agents. You see, like I said, you see head coaches just kind of casually walking, where it's almost just like an information overload. And so going in this time, I was a little bit more prepared on what to expect, and it was definitely learned for my first time, and I think made the most of my week there in round 2.
When what was your biggest goal going in there? Like, okay, like even for someone like me, like I don't really know what to get out of the combine. Like for me, it's just kind of like a validation of you get some surprises like Matthew Golden, who we'll talk about today. Like obviously we know he's fast, he's game fast, but I didn't realize he was 4.3 fast. You get confirmation with guys like Jalen Milroe, like okay, he's got some accuracy issues because of his foot placement, his footwork. So besides that, like what are you hoping to get out of when you go to the combine? Like what's the goal?
Yeah, so in the mornings usually around like 8:30, the media room, they'll have 8 different podiums set up, and the position groups for that day will walk through in 20-minute intervals, and they each do their own press conference. So out of that, I'm just kind of looking to, hey, there's like 20 media people at each podium. So getting in a question, that was kind of something I wanted to do better at this year, was just kind of inserting myself into those press conferences a little more. And so in those, I'm just kind of looking to figure out, before the combine, I put together like a list of who I would consider Rams fits, and then just going to the combine, asking them Ram specific questions or scheme specific questions to kind of I guess to rank them better as a fit as I move forward with my own draft process, and then also in that time too, that there's so many media in that room all at once, all at the same time, where I also just kind of made a point this year to talk to as many people as possible, because that's how you get information.
Get some networking done too.
And that's something that I didn't do a lot last year, and B, it's not something that comes naturally to me, just because I'm pretty introverted, and going out of my way to talk to people isn't something that I necessarily want to do. But I put myself outside my comfort zone a little bit, and try to talk to as many people as possible. And it was a good time. And then in the afternoons, you walk over to Lucas Oil Stadium, and that's when all the drills and stuff takes place. And then in the evenings, you have all the bar scene stuff and restaurant scene stuff. So it's nonstop 24/7.
Nice to see. It's kind of like a media combine for you guys too. Put yourself out there. Get some stuff on tape. Everyone else seeing each other there. That's pretty cool. Talk about those fits and those favorites, man. I'll let you go crazy for your guy, Jeffrey Bassa. I know you've been pounding the table for him. The more I've watched him, the more I've convinced now too. It is a perfect fit. Now it just comes down to, where does he potentially fall in the draft? Is he like a second round, third round guy? Rams currently don't have a second rounder, but they are loading up some back end picks. How do you see him potentially fitting in the Rams if they can get him, and how can they even get there? Honestly, what are you imagining?
Yeah, I think, I just talking to him in Indy, just again, like every time I see this guy, every time I talk to him, I just kind of fall more head over heels in love with this guy. He's awesome. He really went in depth on just talking about the responsibilities of wearing the green dot, his responsibility as the mic, to ensure that everybody knows their responsibility, everybody's lined up in the right spot, everybody kind of is keyed in on what the offense is trying to do. He talked extensively about that, and just really impressive stuff. As far as kind of where he goes, I see him as like a third round guy, and it's one of those things where, the Rams, I think their first pick in the third round is at 90, and which is the back end of the third round, and the hope is that he falls there. I don't know if he does. I think he's right on the edge there, probably a mid late third round guy. And yeah, just kind of one of those things where you're just crossing your fingers and hoping that he is there.
I agree fully. Like, I think the comment you made in one of your recent articles about how he would fit next to Omar Speights. Omar Speights does have a little bit more of that prototypical run stopping, kind of downhill, will fit into the run gaps. Guys like Bassa, you can quote him as quote unquote undersized, still good NFL size linebacker, especially with a defensive coordinator like Shula, how he likes to play around those nickel and dime packages. Excels in the pass game, which is, I know we need to stop the run. A lot of people complain about it. Excuse me. But the pass game, like over the middle, like our linebackers really struggled, it seemed at times, stopping the pass over the middle. And I think that'd be a great fit there.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think if you can compliment Omar Speights, so I think if I remember right, Speights kind of in the back half of the season was like, I think he ranked top 10 against the run on PFF in run defense. So you're solid there. But yeah, you really need somebody that can kind of hold their own in coverage, and B, isn't going to get absolutely trucked in the run game. And there were multiple times last year where Christian Roseboom, I think he did get a little bit more comfortable as the year went on, especially playing next to Speights. But there was a lot of times, especially just against Eagles, where he's getting blown 5 yards out of the play because he can't get off his block. So I think you put someone like Bassa in there who's really fast. You mentioned his coverage skills. He's a former safety, so I think that really helps him a lot there. And yeah, he is a little smaller, but he doesn't get lost in traffic, and he's able to navigate through it, and not afraid to he's not afraid of contact by any means.
Yeah, the Rams seem to fall in love with these guys who have that undersized quality, the really scrappy, the dog. Let's just call it what it is. They're really undersized white guys, and they're great. Like, they bring a lot of great qualities, but sometimes if you just don't have the physical attributes to either run around blocks or to power through blocks, like you're gonna end up with Christian Rosebeam situations. One guy, I'm not sure if you got any notes on him. I'll just kind of a shot out of the dark. I came across Barrett Carter, and he became one of my favorite guys. Like he's almost one of my guys that I'm watching. Did you get a chance to see anything out of him?
I didn't have him on my list of guys to kind of keep an eye on at the combine. I think he's going to kind of go in that second round range. So unless they trade back, they could take him, I guess. But just kind of watching what I have of him, he is a guy that I do like a lot out of Clemson. I think he does. He does, similar to Bassa. I think he complements what the Rams need at linebacker really well.
Okay. I just like hearing the confirmation that I'm not psycho, because sometimes I show one person and they're like, oh, I don't think he's that good. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, see the vision that I see. Some other favorites that you have out there, like just list off some guys that maybe we're not paying attention to. Most Rams fans are talking about offensive weapons, and then you get like just a shotgun approach. Everyone's just throwing names out there. Who should we be keeping an eye on?
I think at linebacker, I just kind of stick in there. Smile Munden out of Georgia. He dealt with injuries. He dealt with injuries throughout his career, but was a little bit more healthy this season. I think he was dealing with a foot injury, but just super explosive. A guy that I could definitely see Les Snead really liking. And then another guy, it'll probably go late round, but and you probably have some Northern Cal people on here, but Teddy Buchanan out of Cal, Golden Bear linebacker, somebody that caught my eye at the Shrine Bowl, and he had a really good combine in the testing, and then just kind of sticking on that side of the ball on the defensive line. I think that like as much as the Rams need a linebacker, I think especially with Bobby Brown, probably it kind of seems like he's on his way out. Adding adding some defensive line depth, and especially a defensive line, adding somebody that can come in and be that run stopping player that they need. You need somebody that can eat space and control gaps in the trenches there. And Ty Robinson, I think, is somebody that he's not necessarily a run stopping specialist, but super hot motor, good get off, super explosive. Had a 4.83 40 and reached top speed of 20.64 miles per hour.
Crazy.
He was the fastest among defensive tackles. He's a guy that I really like as a fit for them. Again, not really that run stopper, but if you are looking more at run stopper, CJ West out of Indiana, somebody that like Buchanan caught my eye at the Shrine Bowl, and he is that run stopper, one technique that you can put in the middle of the defensive line. He can hold his own.
Sometimes you just need like the beef, like like in the offense or the defense that the Rams are running with so many pass rushers galore. Like you don't want to undervalue the size of just a mountain of a man. CJ West, like he has a few plays from a defensive lineman from Indiana is who we're talking about. He has a few plays that has circulated recently where he's just absolutely taking the guard and basically sacking the quarterback with him. It was on some Jared Verse type explosiveness. That is a name that I can't. Anytime I do a mock draft, I can't find myself picking anybody else besides him. There, it just kind of makes sense. Such a hot name that if the public is high on him, I anticipate he'll probably go around sooner than like the fifth. I think right now he's like fourth or fifth. I could see him slipping into the third if somebody really falls in love with him. That brings a good point. Current Rams situations, like we can kind of we'll dive back and forth on the combine. But with the Bobby Brown stuff, I know he was pretty active on Twitter. He was not like taking a shot at Stu, like trying to say like, hey, put some respect on my name. But when I read the article, like he actually was, I felt like he was going to bat for Bobby Brown. Like, hey, it's not his specialty, but in limited snaps, like he played really well. I feel like he was saying like we should keep him on, but yeah, it just sounds like Bobby's not happy. You feel like he is going to be not re-signed?
That's kind of the way I'm leaning. Like you said, like Stu wrote this really good article, and I mean, an article about a player on the team website. That's you're never going to get a hit piece on the team website. It's not going to happen. It's all positivity all the time on there. They're gonna Stu is going to promote
Yeah.
players on the team and make them look good. Like that's it. That's his job.
That's his job.
Yeah. So yeah, you can tell there's some internal frustrations there from Bobby Brown, thinking that, or believing that he should be used in other ways than just a run stopper. That he was just very underutilized as a pass rusher, and you can agree or disagree there. I kind of lean on the side of disagreement on his effectiveness in that area. But yeah, I think it's kind of one of those things where a fresh start is probably good for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up back with Raheem Morris in Atlanta. They could really use some help on the defensive side of the ball, and just kind of that familiarity there, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I love the. I fall for the trap of I will sometimes overlook like the PFF stats. I'll overlook critical information that probably should matter more in a lot of cases like this. And I look at locker room, I look at compatibility, I look at leadership, I look at all the intangibles that don't pop up. And my answer to anybody who is on that defensive line this year, like, just bring him back. Like, I don't care if Gallimore's $1 million too expensive, bring him back just because of the cohesiveness.
Yeah.
Like, same with Hoyt, Bobby Brown. I've been pounding the table to keep that group together. But ultimately, you know, maybe the coaches know better than me. Maybe they just don't like the number. And I'm all for every player getting as much money as possible. So wish him the best if he's here or not. I would rather him be here, but, you know, hopefully he makes as much money as possible.
The thing with Bobby Brown too is I think like he's been in the league 4 years now, and I think he's still if I remember, I think he's still really young. Like, yeah, he's still only
24.
Only 24. Like, you'll have rookies coming
crazy
come out of the draft this year that are older than that. Like, I think
Shug is like 28.
I think Darius Alexander out of Toledo, I think, is 24.
23. Yeah. I was like, he's older.
He is an older prospect. So. And in that sense, like, Bobby Brown has nowhere near reached his ceiling. But he might be one of those players that you put him in a different situation, and he's used it a different way, and ends up hitting his potential, which I think you want for any player.
Man, it is tricky because I could see that. I could see him absolutely being like a multi-time Pro Bowler, just with his, like, he's very, very athletic for his size. Yeah. But it's just like, yeah, does he turn into that? Does he hit his prime this year? Does he hit it in 2 years? Do you pay him worth on what he has put out versus what his potential is? Man, I gotta bring it back to Fitz, and we'll jump into the wide receiver stuff here. But do you, as badly as you want a Jeffrey Bassa, the Oregon linebacker, everybody wants him, but because of his 40 time, I want Matthew Golden. I can't think of a better Ram to, I'd argue, trade up for a little bit in the first. I just feel like it's such a perfect fit. Like, it has to be him.
I 100% agree. Yeah, he ran a 4.29 40. Had a fast 10-yard split as well at 1.49. Yeah, this is, I think that when we came into this Rams offseason, like, the number one thing that the Rams offense needed was explosiveness, and I think, like, this is a great draft to do that. I believe among running backs, I think they had the highest average 40 time, or the best average 40 time since 2003. For wide receivers, they had the most sub 4.40s since 2003. So this draft class, there is some speed, and Matthew Golden, I think, is the epitome of that. Yeah, he's just super explosive. I think he had 13 catches of 13 or 20 or more yards last year. Seven of those were contested. Just, I think he's only 6'1", but he has that go get it mentality. Great body control on the sideline, and yeah, he's a guy that can blow the top off a defense, but you also just get him in space, and he's going to go make a play.
And just pure, like, there's just so many intangibles that he has. Like, he just seems to be wide open on a lot of plays. I know some of that scheme, but you still got to operate and do it.
Yeah,
and there's so many plays he's so wide open.
Yeah, his route running is I think one of the best in the class among receivers. he also talked about just being able to play all three wide receiver spots too, which is something that McVay will value. So yeah, I think he's a perfect fit for the offense. And at this point, we kind of only can cross our fingers and hope that the rest of the NFL overlooks him.
It seems like he is the hot commodity. He definitely bought himself a bigger contract. Like, I don't think he's going to be there at 26 for us. I do think it is going to take a trade up. Now figuring out who and how, that's a whole other science I don't understand. I wish I could. I'd love to just be a fly on the wall, like in the war room with Les Snead, just seeing how that stuff happens. Touching base on some guys that you were high on, Jaden Higgins, Iowa State wide receiver. Would love to see him wearing blue and gold. He ran a 4.47 40. He looked really good. There's just so many guys in here. Like a guy that I personally loved, Jalen Royals out of Utah State. He wasn't even at the combine. Talking about explosiveness, whether it's the running back, wide receiver position, guys you already had your eye on, guys who are now on your radar. I was like, wow, completely kind of overlooked him. Who else do you see fitting for this Rams draft in terms of addressing that explosiveness need?
Jalen Noel. He's 5'10", 194, but the way I put it in my article is he's a firecracker. He let's see. He had a, what was his was it? He had one of the best broad jumps and one of the best verticals among wide receivers at the combine. Just I think last year too he was 12th in the nation with 11 receptions of 20 yards or more. Like he's. I think if you miss out on a Matthew Golden at 26, I think somebody like Jalen Noel, a guy that again caught my eye at the Senior Bowl, I think is going to be right there. He did an 11.2 broad jump, which is just absolutely insane for that size. And then there was another guy that really kind of stood out. It was what was it? I think it was a Washington State wide receiver, if I remember right. Or no, Arkansas. Isaac Tesla. He tested really well, and I think got on some teams' radars. There's a Colorado wide receiver. His name is, I think, Webster or something. Just another guy that I think late round. He's a good route runner, active in the run game, and the Les Snead and McVay, they've had their success. Their
late round guys
with late round wide receivers, and I think he's a guy that if they drafted could have success.
Yeah, and then obviously we're still waiting on the Cooper Kupp stuff to wrap up, but I think they've kind of reiterated more, both Snead and McVay on some podcasts the last week and a half, basically saying like it is the last option for him to stay. I don't know what to take of that. I don't know if that's just them putting PR out to tell trade partners, hey, we're serious. Like this isn't a ploy of any kind for him to get, restructure or anything, but hate to see him go. I have a hard time looking at a lot of these weapons in the draft and like not feeling like, okay, our whole identity changes as an offense based on who we get. Like the offense identity will change getting a Matthew Golden versus, I don't want to say settling, but getting a 6th round wide receiver that you're not expecting an immediate impact. So it's like, okay, where do we rest that impact on? Or versus I look at running back too. Like how soon do they potentially draft another running back? Because I think one's going to be needed. I don't see Ronnie Rivers coming back. You've got Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, kind of both those early down back guys.
Yep.
Are there any home run hitters that you can see them maybe taking, and how soon do you think they will take one?
Yeah, that's a thing. Like, there's a lot of people I think pointing to Cam Scatterbo out of Arizona State, and he's a favorite, and for a good reason. He is really good. Dylan Sampson is a guy that I really like as well, out of Tennessee. Just super explosive guy. But I think those guys are going to go in the 3rd round probably, and after taking Blake Corum in the 3rd round, and you already have Kyron Williams, I just don't necessarily see them taking a running back in the 3rd round again. I'd be really surprised. I think you're looking more in that day 3, 5th, 6th round range, and just kind of finding a guy that kind of fits a specific glove, I guess. And his stock is really is raising a lot. But Bayshul Tootin out of Virginia Tech ran a 4.32 at the combine, and it was really funny. They do their media stuff the day before they test, and I asked him what he was going to run because he ran a 4.32 last offseason, and he managed to run a 4.32 at the combine a day later. Did a 10-10 broad jump, which was in the top 5 running backs. He does. Ramsons won't like it, but he does have a little bit of a fumbling problem. He did that was something that he addressed in his media availability. It's something that he is working on. It is a focal point. So hopefully that does improve. But kind of heading into the draft process, he was seen as a guy that you could get maybe in the 5th or 6th round. After what he did at the Senior Bowl, after what he did at the combine, his stock has. I could definitely see him going inside the top 100. Same with Devin Neal out of Kansas. I think he's a really good fit, but he may end up going pretty early. I think the running back class is going to be interesting because it's such a deep class. Like, are you going to have teams bounce on getting their guy early on, or are you going to have guys fall because teams are kind of waiting? Because teams understand how deep of a class it is, are they going to wait, and guys might end up falling a little later than they're expected to. I'm kind of interested to see how that plays out. But Neal, Tootin, and then the UCF kid. I think it's Harvey.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I was waiting for that.
I like him. I like him a lot as well.
I love, like, my 2 favorite under the radar guys, the guys who just aren't getting a lot of attention right now. There's only so much media attention you could put on, X amount of guys. Harvey out of UCF, like his top end speed, like a little bowling. It kind of reminds me of like a really fast MJD, Maurice Jones-Drew.
Yep.
Another one where I popped on his tape and you watch his first few highlights, you think, dude, is this guy related to Todd Gurley? DJ Giddens out of Kansas State.
Oh yeah.
Ran not the fastest guy. He's still in the 4.4s, but then remind you, I'm sorry, Kyron Williams, but his 40 time at his combine, he ran a 4.63. So going from a 4.63 to a 4 in the 4.4 range, that can help you outrun a guy or two. It's a huge difference. I like watching DJ Giddens run. He runs high, but so did Todd Gurley. He just has a knack for breaking tackles, big body guy. Tight end. So we kind of talked about this off camera really quickly. There's been some news recently. I'm now pounding the table for Evan Ingram. I think that's an immediate upgrade. I love Higbee, but Evan Ingram is just a completely different beast. Do you think the Rams are more likely to pay someone like Ingram, who's going to not be cheap, or get like a Loveland in the first round? I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you at the wall, man. Sorry.
No, you're good. I think it's an interesting question for sure, because I think you look at kind of how tight ends have developed in the past, and it usually takes them, 2 or 3 years to really kind of hit their stride, and because of that, I think there is a conversation we had that they really aren't a great value in the first round. But then you look the last couple of years, and you have Brock Bowers doing what he did last year. So if you find the right guy, I think it is worth taking a shot at a tight end early. But yeah, I could definitely see them taking someone like Evan Ingram, and then so that it leaves them the option of going for a high end wide receiver, a high end explosive wide receiver like Matthew Golden. I think we'll see. Ted McMillan is projected to go in the top 10, but you never know this time of year. There's so many different smoke screens going on. Teams pushing out info, but Ted McMillan, I think, is kind of falling down boards a little bit. So I could see them going with Evan Ingram early on, so that they're getting that immediate impact at tight end. You're not having to wait out any potential development. That way they can focus solely on wide receiver there early on in the draft. And just Loveland is a guy that I do love. So I guess he considered himself, and I agree. He considered himself probably one of the best route runners in the draft among tight ends and wide receivers, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think there's a little bit of a knack on his blocking, and he's never going to be an inline blocker, but he did call it an underrated aspect of his game. I mean, he played at Michigan under Harbaugh. Like, those guys were expected to at least be able be able to block if asked. And like you kind of touched on earlier, we don't know what this Rams offense is going to look like next year. It is going to look it is going to look differently. And I think, when McVay came to the Rams in 2017, I think the initial plan was to have a 12 personnel focused offense. We have, they traded for Sammy Watkins that right before the season in training camp, I believe. So I think the plan was to have Robert Woods and Sammy Watkins on the outside. They drafted Gerald Everett there in the with their first draft pick. They had him and Higbee. So I think that was kind of the plan when McVay came in, and then insert Cooper Kupp, and that kind of you can't not have Cooper Kupp on the field. So they diverted to this 11 personnel offense, which has had a lot of success. But
damn you, Cooper, screwing everything up.
Right. I think if they draft someone like Colson Loveland, I think you can kind of put him in that Cooper Kupp role, where like Kupp was never an inline blocker either, but he was able to do enough. So I think if you draft someone like Loveland, maybe you have obviously Puka, and maybe you draft a Jade Higgins in the third round, and those are your two wide receivers with Higbee and Loveland. Like I could see a world where they do that, but again, like I think just with how McVay and this offense values wide receivers, diverting to an Evan Ingram who unexpectedly kind of became available this week, and sign him, and then you can focus on explosive wide receiver like Golden. I think that's that might be the direction that they go.
Dude, that was a deep cut going back to 2017 with the Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods.
Right.
I actually just I was talking to a buddy. I was like, yeah, I can't remember the last time he really took a chance on an explosive, like exciting type of tight end since Gerald Everett. And I've always been a big Gerald Everett fan. Like even when he was down in the other LA team, really like him a lot. I'm really hoping so we talk so much about the guys that can potentially come in, and I love that idea of going to like a 12 personnel, because that's going to help Matthew Stafford out. Like you don't want Matthew Stafford dropping back 40 times a game and throwing it. He can do it. His body doesn't want him to do it. Like help the guy out. Don't make him get cracked ribs trying to stiff arm Fred Warner in a week 15 game. Like don't let him do that. And it reminds me a lot of like if you have like a Higbee and a Loveland, or a Higbee and an Evan Ingram, whoever it ends up turning into, kind of reminds me of the Baltimore offense, where they have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, where you can make stuff exist. Like a good coach like McVay is going to find a way to put the best players on the field and get them open. I love that a lot. Whether it's a running back, tight end, like my head is spinning just trying to think of like who do they add in here, because it feels like we're one right decision away from being one of the best offenses and going to a Super Bowl. Like if all else, God willing, the injury bug. But you can't overlook the guys that are currently here. And likely we got some news recently, Tutu Atwell staying on a 1-year deal, $10 million. You have any initial thoughts on that and his future usage, his past usage by McVay?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect them to bring him back. It's one of those things where I do love Tutu Atwell. I think the last 2 years when he's gotten opportunities, he's taken advantage of those opportunities. And Sean McVay has said as much, but yet for some reason he doesn't. When the wide receiver room isn't fully healthy, he doesn't see the field for whatever reason. So I fully expected Atwell to kind of to go somewhere like Buffalo or Kansas City or something, and end up as a wide receiver that he was projected to be coming out of the second round there in 2021. But yeah, no, they bring him back for 1 year, $10 million, and I know a lot of people have gripes about that price tag, but I think it's just kind of where the wide receiver market is right now and where the salary cap is. $10 million is still only like 3.4% of the cap, which really isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. I don't think it prevents them from drafting a wide receiver, or if they have interest in a Devontae Adams or whatever in free agency. They still have the ability to do that. And then just I think it was more about, DeMarcus Robinson or Tutu Atwell, and it kind of sounds like DeMarcus Robinson might be on his way out. And as you kind of rebuild this wide receiver room, having a guy outside of Puka, outside of Jordan Whittington, that a guy like Atwell has been in the offense for 4 years. Just I think having that veteran presence in that room for this year, I think is very valuable.
I like it a lot. I think the only gripe a lot of Rams fans have, like, anybody I talk to, it's 50-50 either way. Either they love him or they just like, well, if we're not going to use him, like, why waste of money, I guess is quote
Yeah.
unquote what people are saying. And I have to agree a little bit. Like, with if you look at this college tape at Louisville, like so explosive. Like he gets exactly what we're saying. Like, oh, let's go find a guy like this in this draft. Is he undersized? Yeah, but it doesn't matter if he's open. He's wide open. Yeah. Really sure hands. Love him as a deep threat. You're not going to have him. Like what is the from your perspective, what you've seen on film? Why don't they go to him more? Like I'm actually dumbfounded. I try to find reasons. Is it just the blocking? Like he can't get in line and do like what a Jordan Whittington or Puka does? Like what is the issue?
I don't think so. I think he's not an X wide receiver, so you're not putting him in over a DeMarcus Robinson. He kind of fits more in the Cooper Kupp position, I guess, and you're obviously playing Cooper Kupp over Tutu Atwell. It's just, but they're both so good in running the routes, running those routes from that spot. So I think not having Kupp there kind of opens up an opportunity for Atwell.
Interesting.
But yeah, I think just in terms of like he'll hopefully finally have that opportunity. As far as like why they haven't used him more, why they haven't thrown that deep ball to him more. Because he is really good. He is really good in those situations. If he's not catching the ball, half the time it seems like he's drawing a defensive pass interference penalty. And he does play a lot bigger than his size. In the game 2 years ago against Pittsburgh, he mosses that guy before halftime, or maybe it was right after the half. It was, but he makes that incredible play downfield, and they end up getting touchdown. I think it was right before the half. So when he's gotten chances, he's taken advantage of it. Hopefully, by paying him, they're more, I guess,
forcing their own hand to have to implement him more.
using him a little more, because I don't think it has anything really to do with his blocking, because DeMarcus Robinson, honestly, he wasn't that good of a blocker this past season either. I mean, yeah, you're not gonna have Tutu Atwell blocking linebackers like Cooper Kupp, but
yeah.
At the same time, like Atwell's not. He's not afraid to put his body in there and at least get in the way a little bit.
He is a gamer, or at least put him on special teams. Like I know he could do special teams too. Other guys that we got on the list, like Tutu Atwell. If Atwell was gone, I thought that it was going to mean that Xavier Smith was going to get more time to shine, because I kind of went back and looked at both of their college tape. Atwell is more polished of a route runner because he just has more playing time. Xavier Smith was still growing his acumen for route running and playing a receiver position in college, rather, while Atwell was a little bit more polished already. And then I think that's all I got for you, man. I don't want to sit here. I don't want to make you go dive through all your notes. Is there anybody else on your list that you're like pounding the table, like, yeah, we need this guy?
So I think if we're looking at quarterbacks, Kyle McCord from Syracuse is a guy that I really like. I think he'd be a perfect fit in this offense. As somebody that
yes,
take Stetson Bennett, and it was fun while it lasted. But let's throw in Kyle McCord as that QB3 behind Jimmy Garoppolo.
Let's pause right there, because I feel like I'm one of the only ones, because everyone's talking about Jackson Dart, like that. You go down the subreddit, Jackson Dart. I'm out on him. I don't buy it. I see Zach Wilson 2.0, and that's really harsh. I'm really sorry to anybody watching this out of the Dart camp, but McCord's my guy. I think just the intangibles, and I'll let you take it away, but I'm so happy you just said that. Let's talk about McCord.
Yeah, just living in the Syracuse area. I bought tickets last year to go see Syracuse play Cam Ward in Miami, thinking I was going to go and watch Cam Ward, this top 10 pick. Maybe if we're lucky, he drops to the Rams at the bottom of the first round. But so that was my goal going into that game, and Miami go up 21-0, and then here comes Kyle McCord, leads a 21-0 comeback. Syracuse ends up winning that game, and I think after that I was hooked. I think a lot of people have negative feelings around McCord after his 1 year at Ohio State, and he kind of brought that up in Indy, just kind of talking about how he kind of always expected going into year 2 he was going to take that next step, just because he knew what to expect. And I think just kind of going into a new environment, a new offense, and doing what he did at Syracuse this year was really impressive. And I kind of see him in a similar mold as Kirk Cousins a little bit. I don't like, he's not a mobile guy by any means, but I think he can do enough with his legs to extend the play. I think he's a guy that that can be that long term backup that I think McVay kind of wanted with Stetson Bennett.
I agree. I think his high upside is he is old enough, he's polished enough, he's traumatized enough, like he's seen enough bullshit with his transfer over from Ohio State there, where he's gone through enough adversity and shown he can come out the other side. To where I play this scenario in my head that okay, who is the backup? Who is the change up pitch if, God forbid, Matthew Stafford gets hurt week 16, week 17, and we're 10-6. You got to win one more game, and you might have to start this guy for a week or two in the playoffs, if not going on Nick Foles' run. How do you want that playing out? Like, that's worst case scenario. You need your guy to play. I would trust Kyle McCord over everyone else just based on how he can read defenses, how he's not afraid in the pocket. That was my biggest thing on Dart, was he just seemed to, all mechanics went out the window the second there was any perceived pressure. Sometimes not even real pressure. And as much as I'd love a project like Jalen Milroe, which is another guy I wouldn't mind them taking a late round on, because I still come back to a good changeup for that scenario is, okay, what if there was an RPO wrinkle in a McVay offense? Yeah. And you have a guy like a Justin Fields, like a Jalen Milroe, but I think Milroe might be 2 or 3 years out from being able to do that. Yeah, I'm really happy you brought up Kyle McCord, because that's
his story kind of reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hurts, a guy that was kind of cast aside at his first program, and came out looking pretty good on the other side. Two other guys that I just want to mention really quickly. Joshua Farmer out of Florida State. He gave a shout out to Braden Fisk. He's that run stopping. He is that run stopping defensive lineman that we were talking about earlier.
He's trying to join the gang.
And after how last year's after the Rams did last year's drafting guys from Florida State, I don't think anybody would be too disappointed if they went back to that pipeline. Going to the offensive line a little bit. I think they could look to add, especially I think behind Rob Havenstein at right tackle. What's his name? Jack Nelson from Wisconsin is a guy that really stood out to me. He told a story last year at spring practice. Rob Havenstein was there, and just kind of helping around. It was like a 2-hour practice, and then Jack Nelson went and introduced himself to Rob Havenstein, and they stayed for another hour and a half, and Havenstein helped Jack Nelson work on his pass sets a little bit. So I think that was just a clear connection there. A cool story, and I think the Rams have dove into the Wisconsin offensive lineman pipeline before, and I think this is I think he'd be a great fit as somebody that if you're looking 3rd, 4th round, they could come in and kind of potentially be that heir apparent behind Havenstein. Jalen Travis, I think, is another guy that I think after you get past those first five or six offensive linemen in the first round, you end up with, I think there is a drop off, but I think there are some guys that can develop into future starters. Jack Nelson is one of them. Jalen Travis out of Iowa State is another. I talked about him I think last time. Ozzie Chapilo out of Boston College is another one of those guys. But, those are guys to watch, and I would watch. And then there's one other guy.
I've been talking about. I wasn't sure. I don't think he was at the combine. Johnny Cornelius, the other bookend from Josh Cornelly. Josh Cornelly being left tackle, Johnny Cornelius being Oregon's right tackle. A lot of explosiveness. I see a lot of Kelvin Banks Jr. in him. Got to work on his hand placement, but I think him behind Havenstein would be so great. Him to develop behind him.
And then I just love listening to offensive linemen talk, because it's such a unique position group. The guys are all so close. LSU's Miles Frazier had my favorite quote of the entire week. He described his playing style as, "I'm looking to decapitate somebody for real." So let's add that mentality on the offensive line. He's an interior guy, but somebody that I really liked.
Man, as much as shuffling around, we've seen having enough depth that can just step in. Depth. I got called out recently for saying that word wrong. It's depth. There we go. That's why I also am taking Jackson Slater. I know we don't need him per se, but if he's there in the 6th, I'm taking my Sac State guy. And you brought up Cam Scatterbo earlier. Yeah, he played the last 2 years at Arizona State, but he came from Sac State because he had just too much potential. And then
Yep.
honestly, our team has taken a nosedive since we lost Scatabo. So I'll say that. I would be first in line to get both those guys' jerseys if we get 2 Hornets on the
Yeah,
Rams.
for
I'm
sure.
going to every damn game. I don't care if they
Yeah.
start or not. How do I want to put this? To end this out, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit to kind of test your draft thought process. There's a lot of people that go for need versus best player available. And I asked my last guest this question too. If the Rams sit at 26 and for some reason all the negative PR around Shedeur Sanders has him fall and he's just there, like, you have to consider it. I know they spent a top 30 meeting on him. Do you see a reality if the Rams maybe take a Shedeur Sanders if he's just for some reason there at 26 rather than moving back or taking anybody else?
Yeah, I think if he's for sure there at 26, if he drops in it, and again, like it's so tough this time of year because you have all these teams throwing out info, and you have these scouts telling media, oh, this guy was he had character issues in his in his team meetings in Indy, and but if for whatever reason Shedeur Sanders is there, I think I would consider it. I think you have Stafford. I think probably for the next 2 years, probably. And so I think taking a guy like Sanders, letting him sit, letting him mature behind a guy like Stafford. I think Sanders isn't the most mobile guy. And I know a lot of people want a more mobile quarterback with McVay, just kind of see what that looks like, but. He can buy time with his legs, and I think you put him in with McVay offense, and I think it could look a lot like what Joe Burrow looks like in Cincinnati
Yeah.
with Zach Taylor. Yeah, so I think if a top quarterback like that falls at 26, I think it's absolutely something they have to consider, and I think I would probably do it, honestly. Yeah.
I'm in the same camp. I just wanted to not feel crazy for having that thought, but we've seen guys like Lamar Jackson fall just because people convince themselves that he can't play quarterback despite the tape. My disclaimer to a lot of people, anybody still watching at this point in our 45 minutes we've been going on, is when you hear stuff like that, when you know you have a cocky player, like a lot of scouts, you gotta think who's putting that information out and for what purpose. That could be a team at pick 8 that really, really loves him. Like, what are they going to say? They're going to like, oh yeah, he's perfect. Somebody else should take him at 2 or 3. No, you're going to try to tank his stock a little bit and hope he's there for you. Or maybe it's a team at 30 looking to trade it. Like, you never know who's putting that stuff out. It could all just be smoke and bullshit. But yeah, I just wanted to run that thought process with you to put you on the spot a little bit. But
yeah, and I mean, based on my interactions with him, like I just kind of stood by at his press conference just because it was Shedeur Sanders just kind of had to do it. He was just like super charismatic, just very personable, and I think I don't buy for a second kind of the recent reports that have come out.
I don't buy it either. And I mean, if that happens and people are that stupid, by all means, give us primetime in Los Angeles. What a better fit for someone like Shedeur. I think that's all I got for you, man. Thanks for giving me 45 minutes of your time to debrief us from your combine. What do we have to look forward to? I know we've got a few articles. All that stuff's going to be linked below in the bio. Putting out some good work recently, but what's coming up next for you?
Yeah, so just still kind of winding down for the combine, but coming up, I think hopefully this afternoon or this weekend, and kind of heading into early next week, I'm putting together a list of 20 free agents that I believe would be good fits for the Rams and players that they should target in free agency. And yeah, I think next week will be probably a focus on that. The Rams have $40 million to spend, and I'm looking forward to see how they spend it.
I'm expecting to see Evan Ingram number 1 on that list.
He will be in the top 5 for sure. Yes.
Well, Blaine, thank you, sir. Yeah, go follow Blaine on Blue Sky and all the socials, and go check him out at turfshowtimes.com. Blaine's articles are amazing, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Blaine.
Thank you.